Good day, everyone. I'm David, moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is HIPAA Bootcamp, the basics of exactly what you need to know. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Mark R. Prengelman. Mark holds bachelor's and master's degree in philosophy from Emory University and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Kentucky. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, David. It's good to be back here on the webinar today. So good afternoon to everyone on Eastern and Central Time, and good morning to Mountain and Pacific. This is HIPAA Boot Camp, the basics of exactly what you need to know. So based upon the content of the program, we want to effectively identify some basics of HIPAA laws that apply. This is HIPAA Boot Camp, how HIPAA and state laws intertwine, because you do need to know there are other laws besides HIPAA. You need to know examples of state licensure laws on confidentiality for healthcare practitioners. We will consider some training requirements for initial and continued education of employees in healthcare, review fundamental HIPAA mandates that all new healthcare employees must know, and provide some elements of HIPAA compliance for the new healthcare practitioners. Some disclaimers here, so we're on the same page about what this covers or doesn't cover. It does provide a broad overview of federal HIPAA laws in healthcare. I do want to provide some additional disclaimers. Before we get into some of the nitty-gritty of HIPAA Boot Camp, I want to discuss about some of the basics of health laws as they apply to healthcare practitioner individually about professional licensure and a primer on codes of ethics and ethical conduct. So where is the intersection of ethics, morals, and standards? Well, the rule of law, so there are questions about, is unethical conduct against the law? Can moral principles really govern? The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996 is not a code of ethics. It's not aspirational. It is the law. It is abbreviated as HIPAA, not HIPPA. The outcomes were to generally prohibit healthcare providers and healthcare businesses that are covered entities from disclosing protected information to anyone other than the patient's authorized representatives without their consent. HIPAA laws cover all sorts of protected health information for which there is a federal right of privacy. HIPAA applies not only to healthcare practitioners like doctors and nurses, but to health workers. There may be people that are nursing assistants or others who have access to medical records, and to business associates. Those are the people that like a third-party computer vendor would have to have a HIPAA. Remember, there are state laws also that protect privacy rights that go beyond HIPAA. Examples of state licensure laws on confidentiality for healthcare practitioners. So there are further examples of state licensure laws. Let me just mention this briefly, because I think this is unique under my own state, Kentucky law, okay? Initial training requirement of healthcare providers and workers are required for correct implementation of HIPAA. So there is the HIPAA privacy rule. That's the fundamental, along with the security rule, and that's how we're going to end our webinar and presentation today. The HIPAA privacy rules are standards that address the use and disclosure of individuals' protected health information by those subject to the privacy rule covered entities. Those are names covered entities, and PHI, or protected health information, should be familiar words and phrases by now. HIPAA privacy rule covers who is covered by the privacy rule: healthcare practitioners, people who work in healthcare, whether they have access or don't to medical records; business associates, what information is protected; general principles for uses and disclosures is in the privacy rule; permitted uses and disclosures is in the privacy rule, as well as authorized uses and disclosures, and that's where you get law enforcement exceptions. So the HIPAA privacy rule also covers notice and other individual rights to the person. The companion to that is the security rule. So the security rule covers security standards for the protection of the electronic protected health information. It established a national set of security standards for protecting certain health information. The security rule requires covered entities to maintain reasonable and appropriate administrative, technical, and physical safeguards, and they must ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The security rule does dictate that these measures but requires the covered entity to consider the size, complexity, and capability, technical, hardware, and software infrastructure, costs of security measures, and likelihood and possible impact of potential risk. The HIPAA security rule covers administrative safeguards about risk analysis and management. So the security rule includes administrative safeguards that also mandate security management process, workforce training and management, about the people that work there, breach notification. It covers covered entities and their business associates who have to provide notification to the patient and others following a breach of unsecured protected health information. Hopefully this will never happen to you. HIPAA breach notification includes all of these elements as well. Again, hope it never applies to you. Summary of tips. So have we covered it all? Basics of HIPAA laws. Thank you all very much for attending today. We hope this has been helpful. Over and out, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, Mark. That does conclude the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead.